Welcome everyone to tonight's Museum Nights for Stanford students. We'll be talking about art, tech, and building community tonight. So wanted to do a few introductions as we start. I am Kate Holohan. I'm the Interim Director of Academic and Public Programs at the Cantor Arts Center. I want to introduce our two student guest participants tonight, Matthew Katz, who is a Stanford computer science major and co-director of TreeHacks, Stanford Student Hackathon. And Tejas Mehta, a student at UT Austin, University of Texas Austin, studying computer science and business. Tejas has worked in the software industry and enjoys the thrill of problem solving and is especially drawn to the immense impact that software can have. He dreams to be a social entrepreneur and use the latest technologies to solve difficult community-based problems. And we'll be hearing more from Matthew and Tejas as we go on. And I also want to acknowledge the two other headshots you see on the screen representing Mackenzie Lynch and Aubrey Beam, who are my colleagues at the Cantor, and their incredible work has made this event and our Museum Night series this winter quarter happen. So thank you, Mackenzie and Aubrey. So tonight's discussion is building upon the museum's previous winter quarter Museum Nights event that was held 2 weeks ago on February 12th. And I hope maybe a couple of you were able to attend that event. And it also builds on the museum's recent partnership with TreeHacks. So I want to give Matthew the floor next and tell us a little bit about TreeHacks for those of you who are not super familiar with it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, first I want to say super excited to be here. I know that TreeHacks, I think we regrettably don't have as much exposure or contact with the arts and humanities side of Stanford. That's something we've been trying to correct over the past couple of years. And we're really, really happy that Cantor came to the event. I guess the first thing I'll talk about is just the basic description of TreeHacks. So we're Stanford's oldest and largest hackathon. I think this year was our 7th year running. And so like at its core, a hackathon is just we bring in our case, well over 1,000 people together for a weekend to build projects, learn new technologies, and make new friends. So when we're all in person, that involved flying in a bunch of people from, all over the globe, mostly US, Canada, some Mexico, busing in people from Berkeley, UCLA, USC, Caltech, et cetera. And of course, inviting a ton of people from the Stanford community, all getting together in the Huang Engineering Building and then just having a weekend of coding. We couldn't do that this year, unfortunately, but we tried to keep that same spirit alive with a virtual event. And so yeah, hackathon, just get together for a weekend and build software that actually, you try to have it be impactful in some way. So it's not like a coding competition or a math competition traditionally where it's just about proving you're a really good coder or you're really smart. It's about building stuff that could feasibly be used to help the world. So yeah, there's a lot of different hackathons all across the country. One of the things that we think sets TreeHacks apart is that we're focused on being beginner friendly and very accessible. So we had a ton of pre-event workshops and we had met a ton of beginner CS students and a lot of people who have never even touched programming before in their lives. And we hope, and I think we've seen that they have a lot of fun and learn a lot as well. So yeah, as I mentioned before, this year, TreeHacks, 7th ever iteration of TreeHacks. The theme this year was hacking for the future. And so overarching broadly, we wanted people to address deeply impactful problems and build creative solutions to those problems. We had 5 challenges, so social connectivity, education, healthcare, civic engagement, and sustainability. We try not to be too prescriptive, so people are free to work on whatever they want, but we use those as guides. Some examples of projects we had this year were a VR sign language learning game, like a tech-enabled birdhouse with a webcam and a bunch of analytics inside of it, and a bunch of new like ethical social networks that are fostering human connection. And of course, Tejas' really cool project, Activist, which I won't spoil the details of. So yeah, that's TreeHacks. If I've been told most people here are Stanford affiliates, so if you're at Stanford, you'll know when we open up applications for next year. But yeah, very, very excited to be here and super glad that Cantor came to the event.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I'm really glad that we partnered on this too. And it's really great to hear how you kind of value that kind of community building, people getting to, make friends over the course of the hackathon, because that's something we're certainly interested at the Cantor, is how we can make connections across campus, but also, via TreeHacks and the hackathon, across the country, right? Because Tejas is joining us from Texas. I want to take a couple of minutes to tell you a bit more about the Cantor's TreeHacks Challenge and its connection to our current exhibition, which is called When Home Won't Let You Stay. The exhibition is installed in our galleries, but unfortunately the museum is not open to the public due to COVID restrictions. But it is on view virtually, so you can visit our website and take a virtual tour and navigate through the galleries and listen to tour stops by the curator of the exhibition, Maggie Detloff, who I believe is here tonight on this call, as well as stops by some of the Cantor's docents and student guides, so Stanford students who talk about some of the artworks. And I hope we will be able to open before the exhibition closes on May 31st, and that some of you who are in the Bay Area or on campus can come see it. And what we're looking at here, the cover image I'm showing you is a piece by Reena Kalat, who is a Mumbai-based artist. This piece is called Woven Chronicle. And it's comprised of electric wire and audio devices that are kind of knitted together to form a map of the world, as well as depicting trade routes and migration routes. So it speaks very, very eloquently to the theme of the exhibition. So for TreeHacks, we're thinking about how we can connect this exhibition and its themes of home and belonging and the movement, migration and immigration of people, how we connect the exhibition to TreeHacks. So we proposed a project around art, tech, and activism. And the idea was for the participants who took up the challenge to help the museum make connections with and better support our communities. So we were interested in projects that focused on diversity, equity, access, and inclusion, or that helped communities get involved in our current exhibition. So at our February 12th Museum Nights event 2 weeks ago, we also had a tie-in with When Home Won't Let You Stay. And that event took place the evening that TreeHacks, the hackathon, began. So that event featured Bay Area artist Diana Lee, who has a work that's featured in the exhibition. Nadine Rambeau, who is the director of Epicenter, an arts-based youth development organization in East Palo Alto, so a neighbor to the Stanford community and campus. And Cantor curators Elisa Alexander and Maggie Detloff, who I mentioned just a minute ago. And the focus of that conversation was on the ways in which museums, artists, and activists can build community and support our communities together. So it really kind of helped, at least for the Cantor, to kind of help kick off the Cantor's TreeHacks Challenge. And we were really impressed with the projects that students developed over the 36 hours of TreeHacks. So we'll get to the winning project by Tejas in a minute, but I did want to acknowledge our runners up. So in third place was a project called Paper Homes. And it's a web application that would provide individuals experiencing homelessness with addresses donated by property owners. And these addresses could then be used when people are applying for government benefits and employment, and thus eliminating a kind of major barrier to accessing support and employment. And the second place project is called Wonderly. It's an AR or augmented reality platform that creates an immersive experience for learning. The idea is that users of this platform would be able to chat with kind of animated avatars of philosophers, thinkers, scientists, and inventors. One example they gave is Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin. And you'd be able to interact directly with these avatars and learn about their ideas and their work from them. So we really liked both of those projects too. But on to the winning project. The winning project was developed by Tejas, who's here. It's called Activst. It's a website plugin that would allow members of the Cantor community to contribute money directly to community-focused museum projects. So examples of these projects you see here could be our newly launched Asian American Art Initiative that focuses on collecting, researching, exhibiting, and caring for art by Asian American artists from the 19th century to today. Another cause could be adopting an artwork by supporting its physical care and conservation. Or another option could be sponsoring an art pack, contributing money to buy art materials that would be shared with children participating in our family programs like Second Sunday, an event that happens every month on the second Sunday of the month. So these were some of the kind of ideas that Tejas explored here. And I just want to make clear, these funding opportunities do not exist as such at the moment. This is in the idea phase here. And the museum has not adopted this funding model at this point. But we're really interested in the ways in which Tejas's project thinks about museum funding and community engagement in an innovative way. So, so let's talk to Tejas. I wanted to start with a question, Tejas, for you. You know, why did you decide to participate in TreeHacks? And, you know, have you participated in other hackathons in the past?
Yeah, for sure. So I have participated in a few hackathons, and my first one was actually in ninth grade when I attended a very small hackathon hosted by my high school. And that was really when I got into coding because before, like, I could learn maybe what they taught in classes, but when it came to actually building something, there seemed like this huge hurdle that I couldn't cross. But when I went to my first hackathon, I was surrounded by mentors and other students who were equally passionate. And that's when I was really able to build something for the first time. I felt like I'd crossed that huge barrier that was blocking me. And since then, I've attended like two or three more, but I'm still relatively new to the hackathon experience. But I was really glad to join TreeHacks just because, like, despite everything going on with COVID, they were still had a very nice online platform in terms of meeting new people who are equally passionate about same things as you, and also like very skilled mentors that were actually able to help me, whether it was 4 or 5 a.m. They were always very willing, and I was very satisfied with my experience.
That's really great. I'm so happy, and you know, for me, it's really great that this virtual space has allowed us kind of to connect across the country in this way, and TreeHacks was able to kind of provide that mentorship and support despite the limitations of the technology. Could you give those of us who maybe aren't computer scientists or programmers, people like me, I'm an art historian, a sense of kind of what participating in a hackathon is like? What are some of the challenges, the triumphs, the kind of day-to-day, hour-to-hour, and you know what it's like to kind of meet new people via a hackathon, you know, virtually in this case?
Yeah, so when you're at a hackathon, actually some of the biggest challenges are not really related to programming. It's like the daily challenges that you have every day in terms of ideation and like will my idea impact the right kind of people? And while building Activist, probably some of the biggest problems I had were more social or ethical concerns in terms of like, will this be actually helping people more? Will they be able to trust the platform? But when it comes to technical issues, the problem is you can really go down a rabbit hole by like trying 50 different fixes and maybe none of them work. But it's a really game of patience as you keep trying different things, and eventually it just works, and that satisfaction you get is really unbeatable.
Yeah, that also made me think of a kind of comment you had when after I asked you the first question too, is that the hackathon gives you this opportunity to actually get into doing the work, right?
Exactly.
It's sort of a little bit of a pressure cooker because the idea is it's happening over a weekend. Probably in real life you might have a little bit more time to work on things, but that it's that hands-on experience, right? It's not just thinking about it anymore. It's not reading about it, and it's really working through the challenges of kind of implementing your ideas.
Yeah, and it gives you that good kind of stress that pushes you to like be more creative, which you may not get on a daily basis, and that's honestly a really great experience.
Yeah, I think it's good to be reminded about the good kind of stress, right? Sometimes that pressure can be good for us because it does make us think creatively. I think so many people are experiencing, the kind of bad kind of stress these days with COVID and people feeling isolated. Certainly in Texas, the state has been through some real challenges in the past couple of weeks with the terrible weather. So it's nice to also experience some of that good stress and get the creativity going there.
Yeah.
So what interested you, Tejas, in the Cantor's TreeHacks challenge?
Yeah, so when I was initially building Activist, my target audience was actually not expected to be the museum at all. It was expected to be people my age, teenagers on social media who are hoping to make a difference. But as I went through the descriptions of the different sponsorship challenges, I realized that the connection between museums, art, and activism is much closer than I thought. Because whenever you're thinking about like the different causes that so many people are advocating for these days, if you're able to understand the culture and the history behind what's going on, that really adds another dimension to what you're contributing to. And specifically with museums, I remember when I would go as a younger kid, like it would be really just older people and young children. There wasn't really that generation of teenagers, college students, and young adults. So really trying to connect that audience towards museums was on top of my mind. And I know that our generation is like very interested in these kind of things, especially when they're able to make a tangible impact. And specifically with diversity, inclusion, and equity, when you understand another culture, you're much more able to be more inclusive and create a more equitable environment. So I thought this was so much more connected than I initially thought.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. And I think the Cantor is a museum that has what we call an encyclopedic collection. We have objects that date from thousands of years ago to the present day. Artworks that were just made recently this year or last year, and objects from nearly all regions of the world. So there is really that opportunity in a museum like the Cantor to come in, whatever your background might be, and be able to connect with something in the collection there. And part of it is making a younger generation like yours feel welcome and feel like there are things for them there at the museum. There are things that speak to their interests and their experiences, that it's not just for little children on school trips or older people who maybe are retired and have time on their hands. So I love that you kind of took on that challenge. So how about we take a look at your project? I will stop screen sharing, and Tejas, you can share your screen and walk us through.
That sounds great. Let's get started. So getting initial look into kind of the rationale behind Activist, what really inspired me was the rise of Instagram activism. As we've been in this lockdown, so many students have taken to their social media platforms, their audiences, to share causes that they're passionate about and make tangible differences. And I was pretty inspired that like people my age were able to make such an impact. However, I saw some decent shortcomings in terms of whenever you're making a post or putting it on your story, it's something that kind of flashes by your eyes in like 10 seconds. And simply resharing, sometimes you don't know if you're actually making a tangible impact or not. So my goal was to kind of build a platform where you can make that tangible impact and understand exactly how you could take a cause you're passionate about and move it forward. So the idea is inspired from like Linktree, where you put a personalized link in your bio, and whenever you go to like activist.org, you can put in your username, whatever it is, and get right there. So let's go to Cantor Arts, for example. And here are the three causes that we kind of like looked over previously. And with each of these causes, you can get a description of what the cause is, why it's important, and how you can make a difference. And in this, it comes in terms of learning more about the cause. So whenever you are educating others about it, you'll have the correct context from a reliable source. Because in social media, there's always some sort of misinformation going on. And there's obviously sharing, spreading that awareness. That's so crucial that people have honestly got to the point. In the desktop version, this simply just takes a screenshot that you could share. But if you're on the mobile app, it would immediately redirect you, not mobile app, mobile website, but it would redirect you to the Instagram story app. And you can kind of like share this image to everyone right here. And of course, as Kate mentioned, right now, there's not that direct pipeline between contributing to the museum and these causes, but this is definitely something that I think would have great potential towards connecting our generation to museums. So you would add a different link to donate. And this is probably one of the more questionable features that I'm not sure exactly how to implement this in a reliable way. This is where that ethical and social challenge came in my head, was a kind of direct payment, because today the game is all with convenience, right? So I wanted a way where you can kind of select what amount you want and directly donate. And I've disabled the service for now just because there's no way for me to prove that I'm a reliable source and I'm like gonna give the money to everyone. So I wanted to set up a more like reliable domain. But the way that had worked during the hackathon, at least, is you would pay through Google Pay or Apple Pay, and this would send an e-check to the cause that you wanted to actually support. And this kind of experience then made me realize maybe we should spread to different platforms that have that reliability, but also the convenience, like Venmo, Cash App, that are rising a lot in popularity. And let's just take a look at like the admin panel of like someone, if I was Cantor Arts, what it would look like. So over here, you could kind of create your personalized username. You could name your cause, give an image for it, give a what, why, how kind of description of it. And here are the basically tangible ways to support it. You could talk about the website, a petition that they could sign, a Venmo, Cash App, GoFundMe, or another website. And you can basically just give people another way to engage with these causes. And if they click on the button, like we can, for example, add a Venmo. This doesn't actually exist, but if we save this right here, someone would be able to just click here, donate to Venmo. And Cantor Arts isn't a valid Venmo, but if it was, it would directly, if you were in that mobile app especially. And yeah, let me remove that so people don't get misleaded if they want to look into it. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. If you want, you can create an account today just by signing in with Google. So make sure that you're like a reliable person and fill out the causes you're passionate about. Put it in any bio for any social media that you want to share it with, and people can get directly linked to the causes you're passionate about. And yeah, that's basically it for the demo.
Thank you so much. And something that's really exciting about this idea is that it's a very different kind of funding model than museums traditionally have followed. So kind of for context, you know, the Cantor, like many museums, is supported by investment income, membership fees, and oftentimes kind of larger donations from wealthy individuals. Those individuals tend to be a little bit older too, because they are at the point in their life where they have accumulated wealth that they want to share with other people. We also, of course, we do receive some support from the university since we're a university museum. And also, like, you know, a lot of other museums, we don't currently have a way for community members and supporters to directly contribute smaller amounts of money to kind of discrete projects or initiatives, like the ones that we were kind of playing around with there, the Asian American Art Initiative, adopting an artwork. So your idea really gives people that opportunity, and it very much does draw on that model. I think we've seen, if you're an Instagram user, I'm an Instagram user, you know, over the past many months, as there's been so many, you know, activists really doing important work around things like the Black Lives Matter movement and other social causes, you see things popping up, like you can directly give money to an organization's Cash App or their Venmo. But you're right, there's always that issue there of trust, you know? Is this going to the cause that this person is saying it's going to? Is it going to be used in a way that's effective? You know, one advantage of a museum adopting this kind of model is that museums do, in large part, already have that kind of trust to a certain extent, right? We are an existing institution that's, in our case, supported by a university, so there's that kind of legitimacy there. So that's really exciting. And I'm wondering, Matthew, I'd love for you to hear, love for you to chime in. What do you think about this, kind of seeing Tejas's project? Is this something that appeals to you or other, you know, students, friends of yours?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think it's really appealing. It especially I think as Tejas was talking about how the sort of like, you know, charitable giving has become much more social nowadays. But that you know, and that was a very good thing. I know a friend of mine who was in Minnesota during like the protest last year, you know, he was doing some charity work, and you know, with stuff like Venmo, it's great. You can send money to people. I think what's really great about Tejas's project, in combination with that, is that I think a website is just inherently more trustworthy than, you know, some person on Instagram generally. So I could see, I think it's really great right now, but I can see, you know, in the future, something like that being like a centralized repository of like both like how to donate, resources for donating, all these cool initiatives, but also sort of like a source of trust, and like you can verify and you can see the social proof that a lot of other people have sent money and this is what they're doing. These are the programs they're running, etc. So yeah, I think it's a really cool project.
Appreciate it, Matthew. And anyone in the audience, like, I'd love any feedback because this is just like my opinion. Of course, it can only be made better if I hear what you guys think and how to make it better.
Yeah, definitely. And we're just about at that point where we can open this up to questions. And actually, I have one more question for you, Tejas, since we are a museum. Do you have a favorite museum or an artist or an artwork that you really love?
Yeah, honestly, my favorite museum's not necessarily for its art, but it's the Dallas Museum of Art, and this applies to probably most museums. But the reason I've liked it so much is, like, as I was growing up, almost everything was pay to play. You had to enter here, and it felt like I was entering a commercial transaction. But when I went into like an art museum, it was free entry. I could feel like I was welcomed. It didn't feel like I was kind of like buying myself there, and that's honestly what made it like a welcoming place and enforced the idea that art is truly for everyone and doesn't really discriminate to anyone.
That is a wonderful sentiment and something that certainly I and my colleagues at the museum wholeheartedly believe in. And the Cantor is also free. And it's really fundamental to the museum that we are not erecting a fee, a barrier to entry there, that anybody could walk in the doors and find something to connect with there. So that it's wonderful to hear that you had that kind of moving experience at the Dallas Museum. All right, I think we are right on schedule because we have about 10 minutes left for our event tonight. So would love to open it up to some questions. Do we have any questions from our audience here? And you can put them in the chat and either I, Mackenzie, or Aubrey will take a look and read them out.
I actually had a question, Tejas. How many different causes can you put on through like Activist? Because I know like in the demo we saw for TreeHacks, you had 3, and then for Cantor again, we have 3, but is there a max amount? Do you feel like there should be at least 3, there should be at most 3? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, technically, like the way I've coded it, you can add like a lot, almost infinite, but of course, eventually I'll run out of storage and it will not fit the page. But of course, from a user experience perspective, if you want someone to contribute to a cause, you should keep it around. I would say 1 is still fine. Like that's like what you're most passionate about, but not probably exceeding 7, because that's when things start to get diluted and you don't know if your target audience will really know what to contribute. And I think that's honestly a pretty big problem in society today. Is like every time I'm like, I want to give back, where should I donate? I'm like overwhelmed with the amount of orgs that I should make a difference from. And I'm like, my wallet's only this big. I can't help everyone. So I would say putting that focus and really connecting it to what your personal link is probably the best course of action. But yeah, technically you can just keep hitting the press button and it'll let you.
Any other questions for Tejas or Matthew? All right, there's a question from Maggie. Hi, Maggie. And Maggie is curious to know, Tejas, what your next steps are in developing this project.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, the version you just saw is significantly more improved. The version I'd actually developed in TreeHacks. During all of the blackouts and everything going on in Texas, I had a lot of time to kind of iterate upon it. So my goal is to keep iterating upon it. I think it's at a point where it's fully technically functional now, but it can definitely iterate in terms of more user-friendly features or adding new features in general. But my plan was to launch it around Monday to my close friends and generally my audience that I have a connection with. And if you want to use it, feel free to use it today. It's completely ready to be deployed. And I would love any feedback on how you think you can make it better. But yeah, the goal is to start sending it to people right now.
I love that you are moving fast, which is great. I am personally, I have probably a very cautious nature, so I probably would not be the best tech innovator. But I love that. So that's an invitation, right, to everyone here to go on Tejas's site and sign up and start using it.
If someone could send the link in the chat, I know I spelled it a bit differently to meet like the modern startup vibe, and also because activist.org was already taken. Yeah.
I think Mackenzie just put it in the chat. Yeah, it's Activist without the second I, which does give it that sort of tech flair too, you know, like a tech company flair. They have creative great. Any other questions?
Or suggestions.
Or suggestions, yes.
Even if you think this idea is completely like useless, I'd love to hear it and why.
Something that I had actually been thinking about is, you know, from the museum side, you know, like I said, we're interested really in building community and thinking about how something like this can help people feel more connected to the museum. And what struck me is that it gives people kind of skin in the game, right? That feeling like I've directly contributed my own money, however limited my means might be, you know, you could be $10 or something. And it's something that the museum's doing that I care about and that I know is going to have an immediate impact on other people. And I think that's really important to a lot of people these days. Like you said, there are so many charitable organizations and nonprofit organizations to donate to that you can sometimes feel paralyzed by the choices. How do you distribute your limited means? And, you know, who do you trust there? So I think that's really appealing about it is that you can see the museum making a direct impact on other people's lives, both on your life, you know, as a museum goer, but on fellow museum goers' lives.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add upon a pivot I was actually discussing with Mackenzie during the hackathon while she was judging me, was that in addition to this just being like a platform, I was thinking it could possibly be like an extension to services that the museum could provide. So for example, if you do donate to the Asian American Art initiative, then maybe you can have like a unique experience to come to the museum and have like an event. Or maybe like if you donate to basically any culture, you can get into a deeper sense of the art behind the movement, because there always is art behind every movement, in my opinion. And that's like a new pivot that I thought would possibly be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I love that idea. Right. And part of that is that skin in the game. Like, okay, I'm really interested in this. I've given money, and there's opportunities for the museum then to respond, you know, to bring those people into the physical space or the virtual space of the museum and say, hey, you're a supporter of this. We're gonna, you know, show you what we're doing here. So that's great. We are almost at time. So I just want to, you know, see if there are any further questions or comments. Another one from Maggie. Thank you, Maggie. She said, this is similar to Kickstarter, but it's a direct payment model. And she's asking, how would you see, how would you financially support your project here, right? Your application, if there's no fees for use? How do you see it being sustainable for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Maggie. And that's honestly like, even as a business major, that kind of like question is always what haunts me whenever I'm developing software, especially socially aligned software. And Kickstarter was actually one of the more influential products that inspired me to make this. But as of right now, my plan was to just add like a donate button. Someone can donate to keep the service running if they want. But of course, that's like a completely random type of revenue model that's more based on altruism than actually taking anything. I'm very strongly against taking parts of people donation. Like I know some platforms end up doing that, but I don't want to basically include this website in it just to increase the trust of the platform. But what I was thinking is I can run this platform for free for a decent amount until it reaches a certain scale, because I'm using Google's Firebase to host the website and Cloud Functions, all these free services from Google that are run free until you cross a certain threshold. So I've kind of been procrastinating the idea of how to make money until I reach that kind of scale. And I've kind of tested out the idea, see if it's appealing to everyone. But Maggie, like if you have an idea on how this kind of model can make money, I'd love to hear it.
Maggie, like me, we're both art historians. We're not business majors. We spend our lives thinking about researching art, teaching about art. We do have one more question. So this will be our last question. And after that, I'm just going to share my screen one more time to show you about some upcoming opportunities at the museum. So here's a question from Ishan. Have you considered gauging the impact of donations? When I consider donating to a cause again in the future, I'd like to see what the organization was able to accomplish with my previous donation.
Yeah, that's honestly a really great idea. I
Mhm.
had thought about it a bit in terms of showing that like this cause has earned this much money and kind
Mhm.
of like where it will go to in the future. That was part of the criteria for what they should put in the description. But this is a unique idea in terms of saying, how has the stuff I've already donated in the past um, like impacted organizations? And I think that's a great way to get users coming back to the platform to see what they've donated. So I actually really like that idea.
Mhm.
And if you have any follow-ups on different metrics, like, do you have any suggestions on how like one could track these kind of things? Um, yeah, I know
So
it's a
yeah,
tough.
I
Yeah,
could also connect with you after this if you like, but I do have some ideas about, well, one way you could integrate it with your platform is to have like, when you click on something that you've already donated to, maybe have some sort of pop-up by the organization itself that shows an anonymized way of how they were able to use a previous round of donations to achieve something.
yeah, that seems pretty doable and a really great way to get users more engaged. And I think Mackenzie shared my contact information, so feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear more from you.
For sure.
I'll put it in the chat now.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and Maggie had commented to me too in the chat. You know, this would be a good question for the museums as well. Is how are we tracking? You know, keeping track of these finances and making sure we're staying connected with our financial supporters and showing them that yes, we are using these funds that you have generously donated. We do that in the kind of traditional model that I described before, but it would be a big question. How do you do it using this kind of model? So a lot of food for thought there. So I'm going to share my screen just one last time and show you all a couple of slides before we leave. Just plugging our exhibition curated by Maggie at the Cantor, When Home Won't Let You Stay. It's on view now through May 31st of this year. And you can virtually visit at the website below. So we encourage all of you, if you haven't visited the website yet, please do. You can do a virtual tour and there's lots of other materials there that you can delve into. And also wanted to plug one of our upcoming programs related to When Home Won't Let You Stay. Maggie will be giving a curator tour via Zoom on March 3rd, so that's next week at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can visit our website to learn more and sign up if you would like to attend that tour. So I will stop sharing and thank everyone for attending. Thank you so much, Matthew and Tejas, for being here. This was really a great conversation. I appreciate all of the work that Matthew, you put into organizing TreeHacks and making it a success this year, and Tejas, all the incredible thinking you've done on your project, meeting the Cantor's Challenge. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you guys so much as well for sponsoring the TreeHacks and Matthew and all the TreeHacks organizers. That was honestly one of the best organized virtual hackathons I've actually been to. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate that. And of course, thank you for coming. Thank you for Cantor for partnering with us. Yeah, hope to see you, Tejas, there next year, TreeHacks 2022.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's hope we can all see each other in person by next year, for sure. All right, everybody, thank you for being here. Hope you have a great Friday evening and a great weekend.